There are two reasons why I would say this particular topic is important. The integration of, because traditionally, from both sides, from psychologist sides and from the spiritual side, from the religious side, often psychology and spirituality has often been assumed to be two opposite poles that never meets in the center, right? So often people from spiritual traditions perceive perhaps going for mental health care counseling as a weakness of faith, and frequently they present with problems or with concerns that might benefit from a combined psycho-spiritual intervention. But often, because they are from a spiritual tradition, they will say, I must only pray on this. Now, of course, you need to pray on it, all right? But there are important interventions from a psychological perspective that would actually lead to a resolution of the problem in a much more effective manner, all right? While you're also praying or doing other spiritual practices in order to improve your condition. So for that reason, it's important just to, to debunk some myths, right? And I think for today's conversation, I kind of want to limit it to rather speaking to it from the position of, from the spiritual aspect dimension, because I can, of course, discuss quite a lot in terms of how psychology is partly in trouble today in the modern world, because it distances itself from people's meaning frames. But for the purpose of this conversation, I rather want to reflect on communities of faith needing to embrace the psychological aspect as part of spiritual treatment, right? So that's for me part of the reason. The second reason, to answer your question why it's important to discuss where does spirituality and psychology meet, there is such a stigma attached to mental health care. So often people assume, that there's something quite shameful or there's something wrong with me when I have to actually take medication, or I have to see a therapist, or I have to go to the mental health care clinic, right? And yet, and so that often means that people cannot get the benefit from the treatment. And then, and especially people from faith-based communities, how they could then integrate the mental health care treatment into their spiritual practices. So that is the second reason for me why a discussion like this is important, all right? But what I now want to go on to, I want to talk about that first component that I said, the first part of my discussion. When you think of, for instance, and I want to address the Abrahamic traditions here, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, for all three, these Abrahamic traditions have received divine revelation. But if you look at the way this divine revelation was received by man, the Bible or the Torah for the Jewish scriptures or the Quran did not drop from the sky onto the ground for people. All of these traditions came via a human vehicle. The message of the Torah, the message of the Bible, the message of the Quran was conveyed through long lines of prophethood. So in other words, from the inception then, in the spiritual traditions, it has always integrated its spiritual messages via a human vehicle. So although these were saints and these were special people, they could probably walk on water, but still they were human like us, and they ate and drank. They had their own struggles and human anxieties. So my first point that I would want to make is that from a spiritual side, spirituality had never meant to divorce itself from our human nature. So that's the first. The second thing that I want to say, again from the spiritual traditions, if you look at all the traditions, if you take the 10 Commandments, for instance, all of them speaks to and try to contain and direct human behaviors. So for instance, our impulses, we are, like one theologian says, human beings, we are a combination of the celestial and the spiritual, the celestial and the terrestrial. So we are partly from the earth and we are partly spirit, all right? We can think in biblical terms, Adam was made of clay. So in other words, human beings, we occupy that special position of being partly angelic and partly animalistic. So in other words, we will then need both. We will need to develop our humanity. When we are children, we need to be parented. We need love. We need to develop a self-esteem. We need fathering. We need mothering. We need uncles. We need the tribe and the extended family. So in other words, human beings have to go through a humanizing process, right? And the purpose of the scriptures is to, in fact, to assist with that humanizing project. So in other words, at the end of the day, it seems to me that both the spiritual traditions as well as the mental health care traditions, their goals are the same. We all want good human beings. We want human beings who can love themselves, who are loving towards others, who are kind, who are generous, who spread love and goodwill. Certainly, if I have to interview people from the psychology traditions, the mental health care professions, they're going to say, yes, that is their goal in their mental health care projects that they run. If I go to the pastors, if I go to the imams, if I go to the people of religion and I ask them, what do you want? What is your goal for human beings? They are going to say the same thing. So that is the reason why I'm saying, but that my first point of call is that actually perhaps this so-called split between mental health care and spirituality is perhaps just a modern invention.